Part 1, The Wall That Wasn't Mine. I found the letter by accident. It was a Tuesday. I remember that because I always fix something on Tuesdays. After Claire left, I made myself a list, a rotating calendar of small rituals that gave my life shape. Mondays were laundry. Tuesdays were home repairs. Wednesdays I cooked, even if I didn't eat much. That Tuesday, it was the living room wall, a slight bulge near the baseboard where moisture had warped the paneling. I didn't expect to find anything behind it. Maybe some old wiring or a patch of rotted insulation. But instead, when I peeled the wood back, I found an envelope. Yellowed, tied with twine, addressed in faded ink. To Daniel, if you're still here, there's something about finding your own name in a place it doesn't belong. Something that presses down on your chest in ways you can't quite explain. At first, I thought it was Claire's handwriting. That would have made sense. She was sentimental like that, always tucking notes into books, hiding messages in the margins of things. But it wasn't her script. It was shakier, older, still elegant. I opened it slowly, careful not to tear the paper. There were 6 pages inside. The first line stopped me cold. I've been living 2 lives for longer than I want to admit. I sat on the floor, the ripped paneling behind me, the letter in my hand. And I started to read the last thing I ever expected. Claire's secret. Not one she told me. Not one she meant for me to find. But the one she buried between our walls. Part 2, The Things She Never Said. I read the letter twice that night. First in silence. Then out loud to an empty room. Just to hear her voice again, even if it wasn't really hers anymore. In the letter, she wrote about a man. She never said his name, just referred to him as H. He wasn't a lover. Not exactly. She made that painfully clear. He wasn't someone I loved. But I loved who I was when I was with him. And that's sometimes worse. She described nights spent in silence beside him. Long walks through unfamiliar neighborhoods. A hotel room in another city where no names were exchanged. Not an affair. Not quite. More like an alternate life. A theater she visited when our own life grew too predictable. She wrote about me too. You were steady. And kind. And I drowned in that steadiness. I needed you to be the raft. But I also needed to fall overboard sometimes. I closed the letter. My throat felt thick. I had always thought I was the boring one. The dependable one. I wore that like armor. Claire was the fire and I was the hearth. I thought she needed me because I didn't change. But maybe she left because I never did. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat on the floor, reading the lines again, tracing her words with my thumb like they might give me new meaning if I touched them softly enough. And then I noticed something else. A second envelope. Folded inside the back page. This one was sealed. No name. Just a small message scribbled across it. Don't open this unless you're willing to lose everything you thought was true. I stared at it for a long time. Then I slid it into my desk drawer. And poured myself a drink I hadn't touched in months. Part 3, Her Eyes in My Memory. I met Claire at a bookstore. I was 28. She was 23. She was standing in the poetry aisle, flipping through Rilke like it was a grocery list. She smiled without looking at me and said, "You're standing too close for someone who hasn't said a word." I said the first thing that came to mind. I wasn't sure if you were real. She laughed. That's a new one. She was always like that, half here, half somewhere else. When we moved in together 2 years later, I thought we were settling down. But in truth, she was still moving. Just not in ways I could see. We built a life slowly. Bookshelves. Rugs. Coffee routines. We never fought. That was the thing. Even when she left. No screaming. No door slammed. Just a note on the fridge. I had to go. I'm sorry I didn't say this sooner. I didn't chase her. I didn't know where to go. And now, sitting in the same living room where she read aloud from Virginia Woolf, where she cried over movies she pretended not to like, I held a sealed envelope in my hand, one she had hidden in a wall, waiting for a moment like this. It was her voice, again, that echoed in my head. Don't open this unless you're willing to lose everything. I almost put it back. Almost. But then I thought, what if I already have? I cracked the seal. Inside, a single photo. Claire. On a train platform. Kissing a man I'd never seen before. And beneath it a date. 6 months before our wedding. Part 4, A Name I Wasn't Supposed to Know. I stared at the photo for what felt like hours. She looked young. Weightless. Her eyes were closed and the man's hand cupped the back of her neck like he knew her, not in the way strangers know each other briefly, but the way people who have unfinished stories do. The photo was dated 6 months before our wedding. I was still choosing suit colors while she was pressing her mouth to someone else's. I flipped the photo over. In the corner, faint handwriting. H. Munich. So he had a name. A letter, at least. And a place. I tried to remember if Claire had ever been to Germany. She'd gone abroad before we got serious. A fellowship, maybe? She'd mentioned it once casually in passing like it didn't matter. And maybe it didn't. Maybe he did. I took the photo to my desk and searched old calendars, emails, anything. And there it was, a string of entries she'd logged in a private folder on her laptop. I'd never opened it before. It was called Stillness. Inside were dozens of photos, most of them taken during that trip. Art museums, train stations, windows streaked with rain. But none of them showed people. None of them showed him. Until the last one. A bench in a garden. And there he was. Not facing the camera. Just the back of his head. The caption read, "This is the moment I knew I would still marry Daniel and still not tell him." I closed the laptop gently. Something inside me had begun to shift. A slow, uncomfortable realization. She hadn't left me for someone else. She had married me despite someone else. Which meant the betrayal wasn't in the leaving. It was in the staying. And in that quiet, maddening calm. I heard something. A creak. The floorboards in the hallway. The one outside our bedroom. The one I hadn't stepped on since the night she left. Part 5. The room she didn't sleep in. I don't scare easily. But I'll admit this. I stood at the foot of the hallway for a long time before I took a step forward. That room had been closed since she left. Not locked, just ignored. It still smelled faintly like her. Lavender and graphite. She used to sketch in the mornings. Legs curled under her like a child. I opened the door. Everything was untouched. The blanket was still half folded on the bed. Her sketchbook lay open on the nightstand. Pencil beside it. And something else too. A torn piece of paper, tucked between the pages like a bookmark. A single sentence. "You were always the safer choice." My mouth went dry. What was I to her? A harbor? A compromise? I opened the sketchbook. Each page showed the same face. Over and over. Not mine. His. H. And as I turned to the last drawing, I saw something scrawled in the margin. A date. The same as our anniversary. And a word. Closure. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring down at that single word. I didn't know what she meant. Closure with him? Or with me? And then I noticed the bottom drawer of her nightstand was open. Just slightly. Inside, I found something wrapped in tissue. An engagement ring. Not the one I gave her. Another one. Part 6. The second proposal. I held the ring in my hand. It was smaller than the one I gave her. Thinner band. No engraving. A quiet kind of ring. A secret kind. I traced it with my thumb, trying to picture the moment it was offered. Was she standing on a sidewalk in Berlin? Or in some hotel lobby in Prague? Did she cry when she said yes? Did she say yes? The box it was in had no markings. No note. Just a velvet hush of black and a silence that felt rehearsed. I took it into the kitchen, placed it next to the photo and the letter. Side by side, they looked like evidence. Or artifacts. I tried to imagine the version of Claire who wore both rings. Who stood in front of two men and made promises neither of them fully understood. And then I saw something else. At the very bottom of the letter I'd first found, the one she wrote to me, there was a line I hadn't noticed. Written in the tiniest print, tucked below the fold. If you want to understand, find him. There was an address. In her handwriting. A city I hadn't visited in years. Portland. I booked a ticket the next day. I didn't pack much. Just the photo. The ring. And the letter. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. But I was starting to think Claire had always wanted me to look. Part 7. The man with no past. I found the apartment with help from a local registry. Claire had used a fake last name on the letter, but the handwriting matched and the address led me to a low-rise building tucked behind an overgrown hedge. I knocked once. No answer. Twice. Footsteps. He opened the door slowly. Mid-40s. Silver at the temples. Thin frame. Alert eyes. He didn't look surprised. "Daniel," he said. I didn't respond. He stepped aside. "Let me in." We sat at a small table, light filtering through dusty blinds. He offered tea. I declined. "Claire told me you might come," he said quietly. "When?" I asked. "A year ago." I swallowed hard. "How long were you together?" He tilted his head. "Define together." I didn't. He sighed. "Claire wasn't mine. Not really. We were possible. In a different life." I reached into my coat and placed the ring on the table. He stared at it. Didn't touch it. "She said yes," he said after a long pause. "And then she said no." "Why?" He looked out the window. Because she loved you the way people love homes they built themselves. And she loved me the way people love fires. I didn't speak. He finally turned to me. She chose you, he said. And she never stopped choosing you. Even when she left. I stood to leave. My hands shook. And then he said something that made me freeze. She told me to give you something. If you ever found me. He went to the drawer. Pulled out an envelope. My name. Her writing. Inside, a key. And a note. One last drawer. Bottom of the dresser. I couldn't burn it. Part 8. What she kept. I returned home that night. The house felt quieter than usual. Not just empty, paused. Like it was waiting. I walked to the bedroom. The same dresser we bought the year we got engaged. Bottom drawer. One I hadn't touched in months. The key fit perfectly. Inside a box. Inside the box. Letters. Dozens of them. All addressed to me. She had written them across years. From airports. Hotel rooms. The corner of our bed. Some were apologies. Some were explanations. Some were just pages of memory. I tried to tell you once. But you smiled in your sleep and I forgot how. I needed someone to see all the broken things in me and still stay. You did. If I'm gone, please know it wasn't because I stopped loving you. It was because I didn't know how to forgive myself. I read each one until the light faded and the letters blurred into rain. She had lived a second life. But she'd written her first one to me. Every word. Every confession. Every piece of her she couldn't say out loud. And in the end, that's how I knew she loved me. Because she chose not to bury the truth. She just waited for me to be ready to read it. And now I finally was.